Coming up this week on Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, Tesla's unexpected product announcement turned out to be part 2 of the Model 3 reveal. Sort of. It's all about fully autonomous Teslas. They're here, at least hardware-wise. Let's talk about it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Ryan McCaffrey. This is the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, otherwise known as Ride the Lightning. Ryan McCaffrey joining you alongside a very relaxed Maggie the Boxer, who is currently doing her nightly ritual of laying on top of the couch, which she is completely pulled away from the couch backing. My couch is absolutely destroyed. It's on the shopping list, but she's looking out. She just likes to look out the window at night. Anyway, episode 64 here for October 23rd, 2016. And the big announcement that Elon Musk had teased last week. Now, it was supposed to happen on Monday. And of course, I put the show out on Sunday. So I was like, oh man, I just missed it again. Go figure. He ended up delaying it until Wednesday, so that at least made the show a little less stale. And as you probably heard by now, the big announcement was Autopilot 2, or Hardware 2, as Elon is referring to it. Every single Tesla from here on out is going to have the hardware necessary for full level 5 self-driving, including every Model 3, as we'll hear from Elon himself coming up here. I pulled a bunch of clips of Elon's speaking at on the media call, which I was privileged enough to be invited to sit in on. Unfortunately, once again, I am appreciative of even being invited to be on the call. I attempted to virtually raise my hand in the web conference again, but sadly was not called upon. But now, the day of, before I get into the announcement itself and the details of it, the day of the announcement, Wednesday, Elon dropped a little bit of a mini bombshell on us, very casually, tweeting in reply to himself, to his own tweet about the announcement timing, which, as I mentioned, was delayed by 2 days. He had posted, it's going to be 5 o'clock California time, and he tweets, "This is also what I was alluding to by Model 3 Part 2. And so I was like, whoa, what? All my Tesla friends were tweeting me. Everybody's like, what? Are you seeing this? What? Except, it kind of wasn't. I mean, it was and it wasn't. I guess the difference is, I know I can speak for myself. I had a very different idea of what I thought Elon meant by Model 3 Reveal Part 2. I thought that was going to be, here's the car, here's the interior, here's everything. But we didn't see the interior. We didn't see any Model 3. Instead, it was a press release and, again, the media conference call with Elon. So I suppose we're not going to see the so-called spaceship interior until the Model 3 reveal event that'll happen just before or just as the Founder Series cars go out, similar to what we've had with the Model S and the Model X. Now, in the follow-up to this, after the conference call later on, Elon did confirm a sort of Part 3, a sort of proper launch event for the Model 3. So I expect that's when we'll see the interior, unless they choose, you never know, they could reveal it in a, Motor Trend or something like that ahead of time, but, they'll probably do it themselves. But in any case, nothing new about the Model 3 per se, except for the new Autopilot hardware stuff. So let's get into it. Now, I wanted to sort of semi-apologize up front. I'm skipping the Ride the Lightning hotline this week for a couple of reasons. One, the main reason actually is just that I'm going to Arizona this weekend. I'm leaving Friday night I'll be there as you hear this, for a family event. And so normally I do the show on Friday night or Saturday night. Usually it's one of those two. But I need to pack up. I got so much to get to before you can leave, especially when you got a kid. You're traveling with my daughter, so I've got all that stuff. So I figure I just need to get the show done before I leave, and then also just editorially speaking, there's hopefully going to be. I think there's so much to get to. I spent quite a while here pulling these clips. I've got 14 Elon Musk clips that we'll hear, that I'll sort of give my reaction to. So I think I've kind of got enough show as it is, or enough good meat for everybody to chew on. Now, I did get a lot of phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline, which is great. I haven't listened to any of them yet because it's been the busiest week of the year at work. I don't want to make excuses, but point being, we'll spend plenty of time in the Ride the Lightning hotline next week, and anything I don't get to, again, can go into the Patreon bonus episode that's all just of those extra Ride the Lightning hotline calls. But definitely would encourage you to call in with your reactions to Hardware 2, to the full self-driving hardware. The toll-free number, of course, is 1-888-989-8752. That's 1-888-989-TSLA. So give me a ring with your thoughts or any other questions you might have. So let's hear from Elon Musk. We're a good 5 minutes in the show here, almost 6. So Elon answered, a decent number of media calls. He kind of spoke a little up front. And so let's nail down specifically what this is. I gave you kind of the overview, but let's hear it straight from Elon himself. What is Hardware 2, Elon Musk?
The basic news is that all Tesla vehicles exiting the factory have the hardware necessary for level 5 autonomy. So that's in terms of the cameras and compute power. Every car we make, so on the order of 2,000 cars a week, are shipping now with level 5, meaning hardware capable of full self-driving or driverless capability.
So level 5, folks, level 5, that is all the way. There are no levels higher than level 5 when it comes to autonomous driving. Now, it'll take us some time into the future, of course, to complete that validation of the software and get the regulatory approval. I wonder which one's going to take longer, because I'm sure the software for this, it took a year from the time Tesla announced Autopilot 1 to the actual deployment of it. It took a year. Now, this has got to be, I would think, exponentially more complex. Now, yes, they have a lot more hardware to help back it up, as well as computing power, all of which we're going to get to here in a minute as we plow through these Elon Musk clips. But I've got to think the software is going to take some time, and the regulatory approval is going to probably take some time as well. Now, I've had some recent stories on the podcast about some really proactive steps the United States government has taken, the state of California particularly as well, has taken towards wanting to be ready for autonomous driving, which is great. It's not the government is not sort of sitting back on its heels, seemingly just waiting to react. They're being proactive, which is good. But I've got to figure this is going to take some time. Now, that was one of my questions for Elon Musk that I sadly did not get to ask. I wrote down a few. And in fact, I'll tell them to you later because you want to hear from Elon. So this next clip from Elon. Actually, no. Before I get to that, you've got to watch. Go on Tesla's site, and there's a link right on the front page of Tesla.com right now. There is a demo video that shows a Model X driving from somewhere in Palo Alto down 280. Off at the Deer Creek exit, the exit that takes you to Tesla's headquarters, and it drives back to corporate headquarters on Deer Creek. And it's entirely autonomous. There's a driver in the seat who's kind of keeping his hands near the wheel just to show you, hey, look, I'm not touching the wheel here. And it's an astounding video to watch. I mean, it's very cool just on its own because it's seeing other cars and seeing the turn signals, and it's reacting to those. It's reacting to stop, to red lights. But the jaw dropper for me in this video comes toward the end of the video when the driver arrives at Tesla headquarters, pulls up to the entrance of the building, which I've been to this building. You'll see it's cool. It's the lot. The parking lot is literally packed with Teslas. A couple Roadsters back there, mostly X's, some X's as well. But pulls in the driver gets out of the X, walks away. The door closes, and then the Model X proceeds to drive around the parking lot to find a parking space, and it parks itself. Ends up going in a parallel spot. It's astounding to me to watch. That was, for me, the WTF moment. Again, I'm a Tesla fanboy, I admit that. But boy, if you're not impressed by that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this was pretty incredible. So now, that's the S, that's the X. What about the Model 3? The Model 3 will ship with Level 5 autonomous hardware built in as well. Elon Musk, tell us about it.
That's also essentially part 2 of the Model 3 announcement, which is that Model 3 will also have the hardware necessary for full autonomy. In fact, all cars that Tesla makes from here on out will have the hardware needed to be fully autonomous or driverless.
So there you go, Level 5 on every Model 3. Now, we anticipated this. We expected this. I've done probably hours of podcasts about this very subject. If you remember back to the Model 3 reveal, and Elon had, when he'd said following up that event, he'd said, well, there's going to be a part 2 event, and it'll be, actually it was at I don't know, it was somewhere he said part 2 is going to be what you'd expect. And many of us, including myself, speculated that was going to be fully autonomous driving. And so it was, in fact, that. So I want to say Trev Page, who's a listener to this show, and he runs a great website, Model 3 Owners Club. Trevor has some cool T-shirts. And so Trevor, if you haven't already started doing this, I'm giving you a free T-shirt idea right now, my friend. You got to start printing the I Drive Level 5 T-shirts with the Model 3 little logo. Just don't get yourself sued with the Model 3 logo. But I Drive Level 5, even though we can't do it yet. But S and X owners can. So it doesn't have to be a Model 3 shirt. It could just be a Tesla shirt. I Drive Level 5. That's what I would like to see. Next, when, of course, Elon likes to show these things and show that, hey, this is not him just talking nonsense. He is not just blowing smoke. This is a real thing. There's, the video I mentioned a couple minutes ago on Tesla's website, which I highly encourage you to watch. But what about a more substantial test, Elon Musk? When can we see this put to the test in the real world?
Our goal is, I feel pretty good about this goal, is that we'll be able to do a demonstration drive of full autonomy all the way from LA to New York. So basically from a home in LA to, let's say, dropping you off in Times Square in New York and having the car go and park itself by the end of next year, without the need for a single touch, including the charger.
Okay, so that's quite a test, going coast to coast. Elon likes to go coast to coast. Remember, he did, when the superchargers were up online, he did the coast to coast run, LA to New York. So he wants to go LA to Times Square, and he wants to do that without the driver ever having to touch anything. Now, here's just a guess. Here's a random speculation on my part. I think, because he's talking about doing this at the end of next year, I think he's going to send a Model 3. If Model 3 is out, and maybe even if it's not quite out, he might send a Model 3. Because I think if he sends a Model 3 on this mission, it sends a very loud, very clear message to the entire automotive world, and both not only the industry itself, but obviously car-buying citizens, us. It sends a very loud, very clear message that this car is a game-changing vehicle that has game-changing functionality in it. Every single one. Every single car built in. Now, unless he might decide to send the S3X, the sexy convoy, He might decide to send 3 cars, maybe one of each, an S, a 3, and an X, all together autonomously around the country. I could totally see him doing that too, sending the fleet. Like, here you go. I'm going to send my whole fleet. They're going to go across the country by themselves. Now, humor me with another, what I hope is a crazy thought on this topic. And I hate to kind of go off into pessimistic tinfoil hat land, but if Elon makes a big public deal out of this live, that the media can kind of follow along with, that everybody can follow along with as it's happening, rather than doing it, not telling anyone, and maybe like filming it, and then sort of reporting on it after the fact, because I could see him doing that for the exact reason that the exact sort of conspiracy theory I'm about to throw out. I worry that maybe, the Koch brothers or someone in their employ or some other Tesla enemy might try to sabotage the car during its cross-country trip. Now, again, I realize that might sound a little tinfoil hatty on my part, but come on, I don't think you have to be a neck-deep Tesla fanboy like me to acknowledge that Tesla has a lot of haters and a lot of enemies. So we've all seen the hate that competitors and other certain forces have for this company. Would you put something like that, like a sabotage kind of situation, whether it's, throwing, somehow puncturing the tires of the cars as they're going, or, some other detrimental thing to the cause? Would you put that past some of the people that oppose Tesla? Because I wouldn't. I absolutely wouldn't. So I wonder how Tesla will handle it. I mean, if they do it, now you've got to figure, if they try to do it in secret, someone's going to spot it. Someone's going to spot a car. I mean, I guess there'll be someone in the car, so maybe they can kind of get away with it, but maybe not so much with a convoy, with that idea. But if the only thing I would say is if they do it in secret and film the whole thing like they did with the supercharger run, they're almost certainly going to get people accusing them of having faked it, of having edited the thing together. But I don't know. I guess that's going to be Elon and the Tesla team's problem to solve. But nevertheless, I do wonder how they'll handle that. But it's going to be very cool to see. And I think that's going to make news everywhere. I mean, everywhere. If Tesla Model 3 completes self-driving tour across country, I mean, that is significant. All right. Interesting fact here from Elon about Hardware 2 cars. They're going to be more or less sort of starting from scratch. And in fact, Hardware 1 car, the cars now, are going to have superior semi-autonomous functionality in the short term. So I'm going to let Elon explain this. If you are planning to buy a new Tesla, a Hardware 2 enabled car, listen to this real quick.
Yeah, so since this is a new platform, although we've been spending, we've spent more than a year in testing, the feature set initially will be to say, well, at least for the first few months, the Hardware 2, the cars with Hardware 2, what we call Hardware 2, which is sort of the full autonomy suite, will actually have fewer features than cars with Hardware 1. So we expect to reach feature parity following field validation of Hardware 2 probably in December, so maybe 2 or 3 months from now. So for the next 2 or 3 months, actually, a Hardware 1 car will be better than a Hardware 2 car. And then approximately every 2 or 3 months thereafter is when we expect to release significant improvements in autonomous capability.
So every 2 to 3 months thereafter is when Tesla wants to release significant improvements in autonomy once they've attained feature parity by scaling up the software on Hardware 2 that'll match again, have the feature parity of hardware 1, which makes sense. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of new hardware, so they're going to have to calibrate it. They're going to have to figure it all out. Now, later in the same call, Elon backed off that timing a little bit. He had said December, but then later he said, or maybe later for that feature parity. But hey, that's okay. I don't think any owner is going to mind that. I mean, this is a long game. Plus, okay, so you're without the hardware 1 level features for a little while if you're buying a new Tesla. But I mean, realistically, it's already October. Maybe there's of course a pocket of people that have cars on order and are going to take their deliveries in November. Then the cars they'll have the autopilot, the hardware 2 on it. But for most people, let's say you watch this, or you're listening to this show, or you read about this announcement, and you place an order today. By the time you get your car, in fact, the Tesla website right now, I just had it open for. I guess if I just check a few things, I think it had said the delivery was coming later. The point being, you're probably not going to have to wait that long to get your autopilot, up to current snuff with your new hardware. So I can't imagine people are really going to particularly mind that, because it is a long game here that both Tesla's playing and you as the owner is probably, you're probably looking, especially if you're buying a car with hardware 2 on it. This is it. I mean, this is. We've got 100 kilowatt hour batteries on both the S and X. We've got now the full hardware capability. So anybody that's buying an S or an X now could really be in it for the long game. Tesla has improved the heck out of these cars so quickly. We've talked a lot about it on this podcast, but now I think I don't know what other major features would be left to come down the pipe where you'd buy a new Tesla and then go, oh man, I wish I'd just waited a few months for that that feature. This is the big one, the full self-driving hardware. So there you go. That was an interesting point from Elon about the slow ramp up with hardware 2 and its functionality. Here now, Elon talks about there are 2 levels. Now, if you go on the Design Studio right on Tesla's site, it spells this out pretty clearly, but as of the media call, this wasn't up yet. So here's Elon explaining the fact that there are now 2 options when you purchase a car: enhanced autopilot, and then on top of that, should you choose, full self-driving. He talks about the differences between them. Here we go.
Basically, there'll be 2. There'll be 2 options for buying a car. One is what we call enhanced autopilot, which is kind of quite similar to what the autopilot that we had been offering, except that it's got redundant forward cameras, and it has a left rear camera and a right rear camera, as well as a significantly improved ultrasonic sonar and much more computing power. The net effect of enhanced autopilot is you should be able to go from freeway on-ramp to exit, as well as transitioning between multiple freeways, and passing and maneuvering around other cars without touching anything with enhanced autopilot. Then there's sort of the full self-driving capability, which will take care of the much more complex situations in urban environments. And so there'll be two options that people can pick in buying the car. Either basically an improved version of autopilot or full self-driving. So one's kind of 4 cameras, the other's 8 cameras.
So the price of autopilot has now gone up as Maggie the boxer chugs away behind me. As you know, Elon even said autopilot enhanced is basically a better version of the highway driving assist that autopilot is now. It sounds like it's basically autonomous driving on the highway. Whereas full self-driving hardware, that sort of extra layer with the 8 cameras, gives you the city driving, the urban driving portion of that equation, thus, combining the two of them together for, total full autonomous self-driving. So that is an interesting sort of layer to this that I hadn't anticipated. I always thought that as Tesla moved forward, it would just be one system that every car would get. It's interesting that they're doing 2 tiers of this. Now, here Elon details the difference between the current autopilot and the new setup. Listen for the level, how much of an increase there is in computing power. In computing power, and you know what? I want to let Elon say this and let you hear it, because it's pretty interesting here. Elon Musk.
So we go from 1 camera to 8 cameras, and 3 of which are forward cameras. So we have redundancy in the forward camera, is sort of looking forward. And we have 360-degree coverage, visual coverage around the car. So that's a pretty big upgrade. The compute power increases by a factor of 40, 40x increase in compute power. So it's a gigantic increase in computing power. In fact, the computer will be capable of 12 trillion operations per second. Basically a supercomputer in a car. And then the ultrasonic sensors are next generation ultrasonic sonar, which have about twice the range and resolution of the current sonar, and that's also 360 degrees. There's also some other minor things, like the GPS is more accurate and provides more frequent updates, and there's some other minor sensor improvements on the IMU, the initial measurement unit, and a few other areas.
By the way, I'd like to note here that the typing you hear in that clip, and then there's going to be a little bit you hear later on, it's not me this time. Thanks to, I wish I had kept the gentleman's name around, but after the last time that I played clips from an Elon media call, and I just recorded my speaker, someone kindly gave me a tip for just recording straight through the computer. So I used that tip this time and was able to get just a direct quality recording. So it's better recording this time. I wish I had his name. I would love to thank him, but that typing is on the open line on the phone call of the reporter that was speaking. So it's not me this time. But anyway, remember, it's funny he mentions, it's basically a supercomputer in a car. The GPS is more accurate, and it's a 40x increase in computing power. 12 trillion operations per second. And it's funny, it wasn't more than just a couple of weeks ago on the 8.0, the software 8.0 phone call, where, of course, Tesla switched to the radar-based system for the safety, the automatic safety features, as well as autopilot, that Elon had said on that call that the computing power on the current system was pretty well maxed out. So I guess Tesla solved that problem with 40 times more power. My goodness, this is so great. Elon Musk is bringing the future to us rather than the other way around, rather than us having to go to the future. He's bringing it to us. I love this. Even if this feature, doesn't get turned on for 3 years, which is entirely possible, the fact that he is laying the groundwork now, there will be tens, if not probably hundreds of thousands. In fact, there will hundreds of thousands, because even if the Model 3 gets delayed big time, Tesla's producing about 100,000 cars a year. There'll be hundreds of thousands of cars that when that day comes that the software is ready and the regulatory stuff is ready, hundreds of thousands of cars, that switch flips, and you suddenly have hundreds of thousands of fully autonomous Teslas on the road. That is going to be a special day. I hope my car is one of them. I hope I've got my Tesla by that point. So we'll see. All right. So this next clip is in regards to regulators, to the regulatory approval. But I thought what was interesting about this clip is that we hear that, I guess it's not a surprise because we've heard this about other Tesla stuff, but the system is in fact always on, even if you don't pay for it. So listen to Elon explain it.
Well, it's not up to us. It's up to the regulators. Hopefully, in the U.S., things do not become balkanized so that it's different in every state, because I think that would be detrimental to the U.S. consumer. And I think in the EU, it's like fairly confident it'll be a uniform standard. So it's really a question of what does the public think is appropriate, what do regulators think is appropriate, and gathering enough data, because the system will always be operating in shadow mode, so we can gather a large volume of statistical data to show the false positives and false negatives. When would the computer have acted, and would that have prevented an accident? Or if the computer would have acted and that would have produced an accident, we can think, but that's operating in shadow mode, so we can say when it would it have incorrectly acted or not acted, compare that to what should have been done in the real world, and then at the point at which it is a statistically significant result that shows like a material improvement over the accident rates for manually driven cars, I think at that point regulators are likely to be comfortable approving it. But that approval process really could be radically different from one part of the world to another. It's not something within our control.
So again, not a surprise on this, because as Elon himself, notes that they do this already. This is done now. So still interesting. On the next clip, somebody asked Elon, a reporter asked Elon if they would just deploy this, or if they are in fact going to cooperate with governments ahead of time. The answer shouldn't surprise you that Elon says he will ask permission before forgiveness.
Well, I mean, we've always rolled out our autonomous functionality within the regulatory framework of any given country. So this is not a pleading forgiveness on permission. We work. We look carefully at the regulations and make sure that what we do is in line with those. We can't do anything other than that because it would be against the law.
So also not a surprise here, because as Elon himself notes, it would be illegal to just go rogue on the government and just deploy this without regulatory approval. It would be so illegal. Tesla would get shut down so fast. It would be a very, very ugly situation for Tesla. All right, next, this was one of the questions I wanted to ask. Fortunately, it was asked by a reporter who was called on, and it was, can the existing cars, can Hardware 1 cars get upgraded? Now, I wanted to ask this knowing full well that the answer would probably be no, considering that Tesla immediately said, no, you can't upgrade a non-autopilot car to an autopilot car. So I had doubted that they were going to, if they didn't go from 0 to 1.0, that they were going to let people upgrade from 0 to 2.0 or even 1.0 to 2.0. So here is Elon explaining the decision there.
Self-driving will definitely need a Hardware 2, which is what we're shipping as of this week. It's just because you don't you just can't do this with one camera. You need 8 cameras to be self-driving. You also need a lot more computing power to run the vision, basically the vision AI. So upgrading hardware on cars it's not realistic. It would be like giving the car a spinal cord transplant, wise. So, even if possible, best to be avoided. But I should say that people that have hardware one cars should bear in mind that their car will actually have more functionality than a hardware 2 car, at least until December or maybe later. And it's probably sometime next year before the hardware 2 functionality starts to exceed hardware 1. And there's also a higher cost for the autonomous functionality. So it's not, there's a higher price to pay. Like for the full self-driving, to activate the full self-driving hardware suite, it's $8,000. So that's as compared to the hardware 1 autopilot, which is $3,000. So it's a meaningful price difference, and the hardware 1 actually has more functionality, at least for the next several months. I wish there was some other way to do it. This is not, it's just, I don't know how to go into old cars and install another 7 cameras and a new wiring harness. So there's no, it's just, I wish we could do it some other way, but there isn't some other, there isn't, so.
Okay, so we learned here, I love the analogy, by the way, that it would be like giving the car a spinal cord transplant, just not realistic. Him saying that, hardware 1 cars are going to be better off in the short term, that's probably small consolation to those of you, which is all of you at this point, with hardware 1 or no hardware cars. But we learned here, and it is now, you can see for yourself on the Design Studio, it is $5,000 for the base enhanced autopilot. And then it's going to be another $3,000 on top of that. Or if you choose to activate it later, which I want to talk about, $4,000. But so $8,000 total to when you order a car for the full self-driving hardware. Now, I took a look, and because my first thought, by the way, was my Model 3 just went up in price. I mean, that's bottom line. I maybe I was naive to think that, again, it was all just going to be one hardware system and not a tiered thing and not that much money. But I took a look, and the price of the S and X, at least the fully maxed out price, has now gone up again. The fully maxed out Model S now tops out with, if you get multi-coat paint on top of all the other features, $167,000 before any incentives or rebates. And the Model X, $168,250. The S has gotten some upgrades like the Model X seats and the of course, the ludicrous upgrade on both cars. So they both top out at about the same, and they're both getting more expensive. Now, if you remember, when the Model S first hit in 2012, the maximum price, I believe, was $110. I don't think it got over $110 because my cousin Pat paid. His car he got everything except the rear-facing child seats in his P85, and that was about what his was. And so, yeah, the car's gone up a good bit in price, but you can't argue with the amount of functionality and performance and features that have been added to the car. I mean, full self-driving hardware, which Autopilot 1.0 you get now. Of course, the 100 kilowatt battery, 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, compared to 2012 when it was 4.2 seconds. Of course, the power folding mirrors, the parking sensors, better interior, a center console, nicer interior materials, all that stuff. So, but the car has definitely on the high end gone up in price a decent bit here over the last 4 years. Now, again, it led me to wonder, on both for myself and on behalf of my fellow Model 3 reservation holders, will it be the same cost? Is it going to be a total of $8,000 on the Model 3? Because, it's a $35,000 base car. If you want full autonomy, is it going to be $8,000 on top of that? Are we going to be up to $43,000 with no other options except full autonomy? Or is it going to be cheaper? And this, Elon's already confirmed that the dual motor option will be a lower cost addition to Model 3 than it is for Model S. So I am going to go ahead and assume the worst here and hope for the best, because it's the same hardware, even though it's on a cheaper car. Whereas the dual motor, the Model 3 is getting its own drivetrain, its own motors. It's so there are different, there are different costs and different economies of scale in play with regard to the pricing structure on that. I mean, I'm no manufacturer or engineer, but it should be the same exact full self-driving hardware kit. Hardware 2 is same kit, same stuff is going to go on the Model 3 as goes on the S or the X. Same number of cameras, same everything. So that's why I'm braced for it to cost that full $8,000. The thing I wanted to bring up was the idea that, again, thinking that the software could very well take a good bit of time, and the regulatory approval could take a bit of time as well. It's entirely possible that if you're taking delivery on a Model 3 in late 2017, let's say I'm somehow able to get mine in late 2017, if the car's on time and my name in the, my spot in the reservation queue comes up and I'm able to, if I don't know if I'm going to get a performance car, but anyway, let's say I can get a car in late 2017 and approximately, 12 to 14 months from now. That is approximately when the coast-to-coast test is scheduled to happen, according to Elon. And it could take some time after that. It could very well take some time. And the point I'm getting at with this, I know I'm being a little long-winded, as it's nothing new for you regular listeners. I wonder if it might be worth actually taking the activate it later option for the full kit. And you'd be paying $1,000 more, because it'd be $4,000 to activate later versus $3,000 to activate when at the time of purchase. But if it's going to be a while, if it's going to be a year, if it's going to be 2 years, maybe it's cheaper. I haven't done the math. I need to do the math. Maybe it would be cheaper to pay that later rather than basically be paying auto loan interest on that $3,000. Maybe you just pay the $4,000 in cash out of your pocket when the feature's actually ready. So it's something to think about. Again, I need to try and do the math on it. I encourage any of you to do so as well. But I think it's food for thought in this case. We just don't know what the timeline is here. And since the feature, the full self-driving hardware suite will be effectively useless until that software and regulatory approval is ready, it might not be worth paying up front for it if it's going to be a little while, if it's going to be a longer while. So something to think about. All right. Next clip here from Elon. So he was asked, hey, would you license this out to other car makers? Now, Elon Musk is a guy who is very much, has established himself as someone who is in it for the EV cause. He's not necessarily in it to simply crush everyone else. He wants electric vehicles everywhere, but of course we're not talking about electric vehicles here. We're talking about autonomous driving. But the more autonomous cars, the safer the roads are, and that's something that Elon certainly, that's an altruistic goal that he has. But here is Elon answering the question of would he license this kit, this hardware 2 suite, out to other automakers?
I think this is very hard to turn into a kit because it requires a tight integration of software, sensors, and computing power. as well as the ability to do large-scale over-the-air updates. It's not just some kit that you can add onto a car. I mean, one thing that we've also done with our system is that and we'll be releasing some videos hopefully later tonight and tomorrow morning demonstrating the car in operation. But you actually can't, unless you look closely, you can't even tell that a car is hardware 1 or hardware 2. Because we've been so careful about each of the cameras being part of the frame of the car, such that like nothing's sticking out, nothing like this in no way makes the car ugly. So there are no weird protuberances. It's all incredibly subtle. It's put a lot of effort into not affecting the beauty of the car. The car is as beautiful with hardware 2 as it is with hardware 1. And there's just no way to turn that into a kit and put it in some other car. It's not realistic.
Welp, sorry, other car makers. It's not going to happen. I mean, as he notes, it would be impossible even if Elon wanted to license it out because of Tesla's full fleet over-the-air network, which, he himself noted. That really is the primary deal breaker. And unless all the other automakers start doing a full fleet-wide, OTA setup, fully connected fleet, there's probably just no way it could even theoretically happen. So, something to keep an eye on as time goes by. But this can be a major competitive advantage for Tesla. There's no doubt about it. Of course, the likes of Mercedes and others have autonomous driving hardware and solutions in development, but Elon is planting Tesla's flag in the ground first. That's the USA flag on the moon. The Tesla flag is the first one that goes into the moon on this. The moon being the level 5 self-driving moon. Okay, how is this stuff? I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's a little more on Model 3 and how good in time Elon wants this system to be.
Full autonomy hardware suite will be standard on all vehicles that Tesla makes from here on out. We'll continue to make improvements, and those improvements will affect the probability of an accident. But we feel pretty confident that the current hardware suite will be at least twice as good as as people on average. Now, in the long term, we want to try to get to a 10x improvement, and so that will require ongoing refinement of the hardware. But still, I think something like a 2x improvement would be pretty incredible. I mean, if that was applied across the board to cars, to all vehicles in the world, you'd go from 1.2 million deaths to 600,000 deaths. That'd be a lot of lives saved, and not to mention all the the serious injuries and other things that happen that aren't in the fatality statistics. So I think there's still a lot of merit in trying to go from twice as safe to 10 times as safe. But I should be clear that every car Tesla produces from here on out will have the full autonomy hardware capability, including Model 3.
So I'll bet it's probably going to take longer than he wants to get to a 10x improvement over a human driver. But again, this is Elon Musk. I've said it a million times before. I would not bet against Elon Musk. A couple more clips. First off, here is Elon speaking to testing the system. I thought this was a really fascinating answer of how Tesla handles the testing of this.
We start off obviously with testing with Tesla, with our Tesla QA team. So we're testing initially on a closed track with our test engineers. Then we'll broaden it to a very limited set of kind of alpha users, including me. So I usually have the the latest software update about a day after our QA team has it. And I'm personally testing every element of the car. Then it goes to what we call our early access program, which is about 1,000 customers distributed around the world who are technically savvy and don't mind, or want to use sort of the early software and are cognizant of potential issues. But because there's so many different environments throughout Earth that it's just not possible for a QA team to cover them all. If that's looking good, then we will roll it out initially in shadow mode to the whole fleet. By shadow mode, it means that the car is not actually taking any action, but it is registering when it would take an action and when it would not take an action. And then you can compare that to cases where, let's say that somebody has an accident, but you look at the vehicle logs and say, well, if the car had been in autonomous mode, that accident would have been avoided. Then okay, that's obviously plus. You can also say, okay, the car the car computer would have done something that would have resulted in an accident. In that case, is in shadow mode. Then obviously that's an issue that needs to be corrected. And then in statistics, these are called false positives and false negatives. You gather enough of those over time until there's clearly a statistically significant sample set. And at the point at which it's unequivocal that turning on an autonomy feature would improve safety, that is the point at which we allow it to actually take action. Before that, we do not allow the computer to take action.
So like I said up front, nothing particularly newsworthy here, but I wanted to play this just because I personally think it's an interesting insight into how Tesla develops, tests, and deploys their features, how that whole process works. I thought that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to hear that. I appreciate Elon sharing it. Final two clips here. The first one is about the fact that Hardware 1 folks won't be entirely left in the dust, at least not for the foreseeable future.
The Hardware 2 is capable of level 5 autonomy. In other words, the hardware is capable of the highest level of autonomy. And Hardware 1, I think will continue to improve. As we improve the software that operates the car. Already with 7.0, it was unequivocally safer than manually driven cars, and with 8.0, that has improved even more. So it would obviously be crazy to turn off something that is preventing accidents.
So eventually, like old iPhones, Hardware 1 will have to stop being actively developed for. I just wonder how long they're going to wait. 2 years? 5? Probably somewhere in between, if I had to guess. Hardware 1 cars some of them are 2 years old now. And in fact, that's the window of Hardware 1 cars. Hardware 1 cars, born October 2014, died October 2016. So they're in 3 to 5 years from now, though that 2-year window of Teslas will be a pretty small portion of the fleet overall, I would think. But I think the sort of discontinuing of Hardware 1 support will probably be whenever level 5 is actually approved by regulators and switched on. Tesla might at that point say, okay, that's enough of Hardware 1. We've got to put all of our energy now into refining and improving Hardware 2. So we shall see. final clip, the final thing I wanted to play from the conference call with Elon Musk was just a sort of a lighthearted bit here about the question was asked. You'll hear Elon say at the beginning that this is a good question. He was asked whether or not the new supercomputer, the 40 times more powerful computer that powers this Tesla Vision setup, whether or not it's isolated from the rest of the car. So here's Elon explaining that.
No, it's a good question. It is isolated from the rest of the vehicle. So the kind of infotainment, sort of entertainment instrument panel, the center cluster, anything to do with entertainment, the web browsing, is isolated from the vehicle control computer.
Okay, great. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely don't want to be the car crashed as a result of going to the wrong website.
So a little moment of levity there that ended the conference call. Thankfully, it seems your musical tastes won't trigger your car's system to crash. If you play the wrong song the car doesn't like, it's just like, nope, I'm just going to shut down. Your musical taste is horrible. What are you doing? That is not going to happen. Now, outside of the call, I mentioned the demonstration video on the Tesla site, which I highly encourage you to go watch. It's not currently on YouTube, on Tesla's YouTube. So it's on the Tesla site. It's a Vimeo. But the design studio, which I mentioned, is up now, and you can order a car with the full hardware suite. I wanted to read you a portion of the text description on the full self-driving capability, because this is just, I'm picturing this and it's really cool. So if you scroll down under options, you've got to check enhanced autopilot, and then on top of that, full self-driving capability. So it says, okay, this doubles the number of active cameras from 4 to 8, blah, blah, blah. And get this. The system is designed to be able to conduct short and long-distance trips with no action required by the person in the driver's seat. For superchargers that have automatic charge connection enabled, you will not even need to plug in your vehicle. The charger snake! The snake, it lives! It lives! Which, in fact, Elon himself tweeted out the next day. He tweeted a link back to the old YouTube video. And confirmed, yes, that is what's going to happen. So here's more from the design studio. All you will need to do is get in and tell your car where to go. If you don't say anything, the car will look at your calendar, which it can do now. The car will look at your calendar and take you there as the assumed destination, or just home if nothing is on the calendar. Your Tesla will figure out the optimal route, navigate urban streets even without lane markings, manage complex intersections with traffic lights, stop signs, and roundabouts, and handle densely packed freeways with cars moving at high speed. When you arrive at your destination, simply step out at the entrance, and your car will enter Park Seek mode, automatically search for a spot, and park itself, which is what you see at the end of the demonstration video. A tap on your phone summons it back to you. I would use that all the time. I have a very, very tight garage, and it's a real hassle to get in and out of my garage where I live. So that would be real cool if I could just let the car use its sensors and do it itself and just pick me up a little, few feet down the street after it's, when it's all nice and clear. So I thought that was really, really cool. Now, Elon also mentioned, or the site also mentions, the Tesla ride-sharing program details are going to be given next year. So, of course, we heard about this previously with the whole future of autopilot. That Tesla will be doing an Uber-like, their own ride-sharing network. You'll be able to make money with your car by sending it out autonomously to drive people around. Put some money in your bank account. So details on that program will apparently be given next year. Given next year. A few final points on all of this. The most unfortunate, the real shame out of all of this that I wanted to point out I don't know if it affects anyone in my audience. In fact, I'm sure it does, because I think a few of the, well, at least a couple, I'll say, at least a couple of the folks that use the referral code during the just completed last round of the referral program purchased a P100D. Now, and that's what I want to talk about. If you jumped on the P100D right away, because you had the money and you saw, oh my goodness, a 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds car, I want that right now, click, order, $150,000 effectively. I have got to imagine that those folks, the early P100D adapters, are somewhere they're either sad, frustrated, or possibly even angry. And you know what? I don't blame them. Now, I know that Tesla doesn't hold upgrades for model years or for anything else. They never have. They just implement improvements as they go along. And I think mostly that's a really good thing for customers. Even though, you might miss something, in general, more people are getting better cars because you're not sort of arbitrarily tied to a model year. But in this specific case, Elon and Tesla know what their product timeline is. They know what their product roadmap is. I really think a gentler hand could have been used here. I mean, the P100D was announced barely 2 months ago, and the cars started shipping about a month ago. It would have played a lot better with those customers shelling out so much money for a P100D if Tesla could have just held that back ever so slightly. Now, I know they were in a big Q3 push, and maybe the P100D helped goose sales a little bit, but the fact that there are people that just shelled out that kind of money for the absolute top of the line Tesla, be it an S or an X, this really substantial leap forward in both range and performance for both the S and the X, that there is a now small pocket of customers who are frozen out. They have this brand new car. They probably don't even have their license plates from the DMV yet. And their car already lacks this incredible improvement, being hardware 2. I mean, that's really unfortunate. I think that's really uncool. That's not good on Tesla's part. You couldn't have held back the P100D by just, again, like a month, so that every P100D, even, they could have announced the P100D, and then, stealth ship them with hardware 2, and then had the hardware 2 announcement as they've just had. That seems like, again, that's really, really unfortunate. And a cynic might say, oh, well, if they can afford a $150,000 car, they're probably going to have no problem trading it in for, another $160,000 car with the, hardware 2 in it. But that's beside the point. That's also, that's not going to apply to everyone. I mean, the bottom line of this is I'm genuinely disappointed in Tesla in this. I think it's, they just could have handled this better. They should have handled this better. And if you're one of the P100D folks that's sort of caught in this, again, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be a very, very small number of folks, of P100D owners, but it's got to hurt. If it were me, I would be crushed. I would be absolutely crushed. I would be calling Tesla saying, hey, I just paid $150,000 for this car. We've got to do something here. So, I don't know if any of you will do that. I would love to hear from you how you feel about it, if you plan to take any action or try to take any action. But I feel bad for you. I really do. Because again, I put myself in myself in your shoes, and it would be soul crushing to me to miss out on that, regardless of my financial status. So that's really unfortunate. I think I mentioned this at the top of the show. Actually, I did. Yeah, I covered the fact that I'm going to be in Arizona, so I had to record early. The point I wanted to make on that was that if I miss any follow-ups, which is entirely possible, any follow-ups on Friday, because I recorded this late Thursday night, because Elon does have a habit after big product announcements of going on Twitter and sort of answering people's questions. In fact, I was one of those people he's answered questions for. So if I miss anything as an Elon tweet follow-up, I do apologize. I'll get to it next week if it's worth covering. But just wanted to lay that out. So real quick, now that I've gone through all of the media call, I wanted to just give you, if you're curious, I had a few people on Twitter ask me what my questions for Elon were had I been called upon, the ones I had ready to go. So my first question that I had written down, so would there be a retrofit for existing Tesla vehicles? That got covered. Another question I had written down was, when do you anticipate regulatory approval? That actually wasn't addressed in any way. And I sort of a follow-up I had wanted to ask, have you spoken with the United States government yet, or any other government for that matter, about this? So I would have loved to have been able to pose that question to Elon. I wanted to ask about the progress on the charging snake, since that was sort of covered. It was mentioned, alluded to, and then straight up mentioned as a follow-up. So I did want to ask that. And then my not super relevant to hardware 2, but failing all of that, if all that would have gotten covered and they had called on me, at the risk of maybe making the PR people angry by not asking a hardware 2 specific question, I wanted to try, my burning question, will signature red be available as an option somehow on the Model 3? Again, my dream is that for everybody whose reservation has a March 31st timestamp on it, so and all of us who ordered that first day, either in person at a store or online that first day, give us the option for signature red on our Model 3s. Please. That's what I want. So I would have asked that as my sort of last shot. All right. That was all the everything from the call. Real quick, one other thing of note, I touched on this earlier. The referral program has ended and a new one has begun. I wanted to sincerely thank, I've been so crazy busy at work this week. It's the busiest time. So in the video game world, if you're not familiar, summer is the big time of the year for movies. The fall is the big time of the year for video games. Everybody's Christmas shopping. Fall is the biggest time of the year for video games. So it's been just nuts at work, and I just haven't been able to reply to everyone's email, because I got a lot of very, very kind folks who, as soon as the new referral program started up, a bunch of very, very kind souls emailed and offered to let me use their referral code on the show for the new referral program that's running from now until mid-January. Now, Michael from Millbrae, who's a caller we've heard from before, he was the first one to reach out. So that's the most diplomatic way I can think of. So I'm going to use Michael's code now. I want to thank Michael from Millbrae for offering that. We're actually going to get together for lunch. I'm going to go meet Michael from Millbrae. That'll be very fun. That'll be cool. We're going to go to lunch in his Model X. And so the details are largely the same. I'll give you the quick overview now. They've changed a couple things. So 2 referrals gets you a Tesla carry-on bag, which would be probably super sweet. 3 referrals gets you a set of custom Tesla headphones. 5 referrals gets you an extended VIP tour of the Fremont factory, including a Q&A with Franz von Holzhausen, of course, the chief designer at Tesla. And so Michael from Millbrae has agreed to take me on that VIP tour should we get to 5 referrals, because I would love to try and make a pitch to Franz to have him come on the show, to have him do an interview with me, and maybe I could even just get a few questions in on him to record for the show right then and there. But So real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on this because you all know the sort of drill by now, but everybody wins in this scenario. If you're planning to buy a Tesla, you can get $1,000 off of your purchase by using Michael from Millbray's referral code, which enter this short link into your browser. It's ts.la/Michael2204. That's Michael spelled the traditional way, Michael. So ts.la/Michael2204. And so Michael will get those referral prizes. You will get $1,000 off of your Tesla, and I will not only get the chance to win a ludicrous X or S. They're giving you the option this time. I would take the X, believe it or not, as I think I've sort of laid out before. But yeah, I would actually choose the X. And also, Michael has kindly offered to take me on that extended VIP tour of the factory with Franz. So again, win-win-win scenario for everybody. I'll end this spiel because I know everybody's used to hearing it and they know what the deal is. But that is starting up again, so off we go. All right, I'm going to come right back after a quick little musical breather here and wrap up a few things again. Skipping the hotline this week, both for time, as I need to prepare, I need to pack up everything for my little trip down to the family function in Arizona. And again, we've just had a pretty big show with all of the Elon clips from the media call. So I hope you'll forgive me. I will get to all of your hotline calls next week. Keep them coming. The toll-free number to call or Skype is 1-888-989-8752. That's 1-888-989-TSLA. And I'll just give them the plug anyway. If you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. And I'll be right back to wrap things up for you right after this. All right. I would be mighty grateful if you would take a look at the Patreon page for this podcast if you have not already. Again, as you can tell, a lot of time and energy goes into this. It was, pulling those clips is no small feat. Recording anyway. I'm not gonna. You guys know. I mean, if it's a creative endeavor that I do out of passion, but it is nevertheless an endeavor. So if you appreciate the show, you enjoy the show, maybe you'll consider a pledge. Take a look on patreon.com/Tesla podcast. That's patreon.com/Tesla podcast, all one word. You can follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan or email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. By the way, I've had a few folks reach out and say, hey, is it okay if I just record my own call for the hotline and send it in? I get a little, I'm a little nervous trying to, leave a good, clean message in one shot. Sure, record it, send it in. No problem at all. If you want to do that, you can email it at that email address. AbstractOcean.com is the site to go to for some of your Tesla accessory needs. They've got a lot of great stuff. Slick-looking, high-quality Tesla lanyards, Model S and X silicone key fob pockets, LED lighting kits, all kinds of good stuff. And again, the kind proprietors there have offered up a 20% off coupon code just for listeners of this podcast. So at abstractocean.com, enter the coupon code RTL Podcast, all one word, RTL Podcast. Enter that at checkout to get 20% off of your order. Dave T's fantastic weekly Tesla newsletter is yours for free each and every Friday. Go sign up at teslaweekly.com. While you're out and about on the World Wide Webs, visit teslarati.com. Gene and Electric Jen and the crew there do an outstanding job of staying on top of the Tesla news day to day. Most of you get the show, hopefully most of you subscribe, because then it just comes right to you without you having to seek it out. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, or the actual podcast hosting site. There's an RSS feed there or MP3 downloads, and that's teslapodcast.libsyn.com. Libsyn is Libsyn. And I want to wrap up, as always, by thanking the Patreon producers. These are the very kind folks who pledge $20 a month or higher, and I really, really appreciate your support. Those folks are Jeff Bartram, who, by the way, is part of Operation Supply Drop. He's a military veteran. I actually just got to meet Jeff. He's an IGN fan as well. He came up to San Francisco, and I interviewed him on this week's episode 268 of Podcast Unlocked, where he talks all about his wonderful charity that he works with, Operation Supply Drop, that does a lot to help military veterans. So if you want to hear from Jeff, check out Unlocked. You can check out that charity at operationsupply.drop.org. But Jeff Bartram is a very, very kind Patreon producer. Paul Hussey, DJ Harbaugh, Pete White, Wolfgang Obergen, George Cassiopo, ZL Klein, David Brander, Nick Hoffman, Ralph Weiss, Jonathan Wales, John Waltauer, and Scott Gillis. Thank you all so much each and every week. This was actually one of my favorite episodes to do in a while, because even though it did take a lot of legwork to put this week's together, it always does. I mean, but I just love being able to play Elon clips. It makes me feel like I'm doing an actual radio show and not just me literally sitting in my own home office spouting into a mic recorder, because that's actually what it is. But yeah, just like it makes it feel more like a real radio show, and I've got the cool clips from Elon. So I hope you all enjoy it too. I love doing it. But thank you all so much for listening to this episode, every episode, whether this is your first episode or your 64th. I appreciate you giving me a try and giving me your support. So happy electric motoring, and I will see you all again next week.